Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm actually very excited about today's Q&A topic because it's something that's near and dear to my heart and my head, which is maintaining a positive attitude, especially in the craziness that we're in now, and especially because I'm working from home, as you all know, and I've got home noises. That was the trash truck backing up. So it's gonna be very down home today, but that's good. I'm perfectly fine with that. Just want to remind you of my favorite two things to remind you of, which is our 877 GO Komen number. If you do have any questions about anything that's happening in terms of your treatment or in terms of even just wanting some reassurance, the 877 GO Komen number is a great number to call. There's qualified, trained medical professionals that answer that line. They can talk to you about any of your concerns. And the other thing I wanted to remind you of is the Komen Treatment Assistance Fund. I've actually added a link to our KomenNevada.org website that lists some COVID-19 resources. So in there is a link to the Komen Treatment Assistance Fund. If you qualify for it or you feel you might qualify for it, look up that link right there and that will take you to the right place. And I'm going to cover one other minor thing, and that is I do realize my fingernails are not what they used to be, and I just want to address that elephant in the room. Yes, the nail polish is peeling off. We're in the middle of a crisis and I can't get my nails done. So fully aware of that. Now, the important part, I wanted to introduce you all to Rebe Yogini Taylor. Yogini is a nickname, as we know. It means female yoga instructor or lady yoga instructor or female yoga instructor, same thing, as long as we're speaking with respect. Rebe's actually a really, really great person to have with us today because she is well, let's see, I know it says on here, after 4 rounds of chemo, which she negotiated down to 6, which might be an entirely different conversation because I do love the idea of healing more quickly. She had a bilateral mastectomy, so she is a breast cancer survivor. She's also a yoga instructor, if I'm not mistaken, with Dignity Health Wellness Program, which we're going to talk about in a few minutes because they are offering their classes online to anybody, and I really think we should take advantage of that. What I did love here is, and this is actually one of my favorite things about you, Rebe, is her title on her business card is Amazing Woman. And I've just talked to you for like 4 minutes or 5 minutes now, and I agree. Amazing Woman. I just want to thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, you know, I don't know if you found this, because we're locked in at home, but I have friends that I talk to. I have a friend that's stuck in Peru right now. She's a basket case, to be perfectly honest, nor do I blame her. I'm spending a lot of time on the phone with people just talking them off the ledge. Right. And it's a multifaceted. It's, oh my God, I'm going to be without a job, or I'm not making any money, or, oh my God, I'm going to get this virus and it's gonna kill me. And I'm like, I understand lots and lots and lots of messages coming in. I wanted to see if we could talk about how to calm that crazy voice inside of us that'll help us not have an anxiety attack, not get us stressed out. I notice stress does affect your health. And so I wanted to talk a little about that. So I wanted to start off with this first thought that I had, which is, we beat ourselves up a lot, certainly in the talk that goes on in our heads. And I'm wondering if you might have any tips or any practices that we can do that will help us not beat ourselves up, or at least slow down that process.
Wonderful question. And it's a really big question. We could probably do like a 3-day workshop on answering that question. One of the best things you can do is recognize that we all have this mind chatter. And that those voices, that talking is just, we call it the monkey mind in yoga. That's the monkey like trying to distract you and get your attention. One of the best things you can do is just come back to your breath. And you can use a very simple mantra. I am breathing in, I am breathing out. And just focusing on the breath coming in and the breath coming out really helps to calm the mind. It helps the mind to be more clear. And then you can relook at whatever the problem is and actually use your logical self to address what it is. So obviously a lot of us are losing income right now. That's very stressful. Focusing, I'm not going to be able to pay the rent, is not going to get the rent paid. But if we come back to the breath and kind of clear the mind, then we can look at what can I do under these circumstances to bring in income, to apply for assistance. We can approach whatever the problem is more clearly.
Oh my gosh. Talk about a great answer. And actually, I know this might be a silly question, so please forgive me because this is literally a learning curve for me right now as well. And maybe this is silly, but the pace you said it, is that the pace we should be doing it? Like it's not breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, right? It's a slow.
We would call it like long, deep breathing, a slow breath. And there's actually, and this is like a whole different science, but pranayama is the name of the breath practice in yoga. And if we can get ourselves to 4 breaths per minute, that significantly slows things down.
Oh.
That's inhaling for 5 seconds, holding the breath for 5 seconds, exhaling for 5 seconds. On average, we breathe about 16 to 18 breaths a second. So we know when we're really upset and mad, we're right? So we're breathing way more than that. When we can slow it down, again, it allows our parasympathetic system, our nervous system, to like really like let go and be able to use tools for self-calming. After practicing yoga for a period of time, you might be able to get it down to 1 breath per minute. And that's like a whole different thing. But when you get there, you're in a completely different world.
Wow. So, and it's funny because even for me, and like one of my questions was, actually it's the very next question, and I imagine this applies to relieving anxiety as well. But by the time someone's in an anxiety, I'm going to use the term anxiety attack for lack of a better way of putting it, and the lack of my education in actual terminology. But what happens when you're just past being in a position to calm down your breath? Is there something we can do? Like, is there, like, you know, some people snap a rubber band, or I feel that's a little aggressive. Is there a thought process or a position or something that'll help us slow that down?
These are all great tools, and I myself practice this because they say to master, teach.
Yeah.
So consistency in practice. So when you practice these tools, when there is no emergency, you're going to be more likely to remember when there is an emergency or something urgent happening. So if I'm only say, okay, yeah, I have this tool, and now I'm going to wait till I'm in a panic, and then I'm going to long, deep breathe. But the chances I'm going to remember are, certainly decreased. And if I'm by myself, like a lot of people are right now, then there's no one to say, hey, take a deep breath or slow down. So really it's about practicing constantly. And then you create that body memory, that muscle memory. And so when things happen, you can handle it, I would like to say, with more grace.
And that's, yes. And also good for your own health, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Absolutely, yes. Because we know that stress contributes to a weakened immune system, which opens up to COVID or cancer or any number of other things.
Right. And that's actually one of the reasons why I thought this would be a great conversation, not just because we're in a crazy time, and we are. And part of me is like, for me personally, I like to recognize what I'm in. But like you said, I also like to go, but I'm in control of these things that I can control. Like I can control not connecting with people that are currently ill, right? I stay at home. I shop when I'm supposed to be shopping. I don't go out more than I need to right now. Of course, I don't have kids at home. I found that that's the magic formula right there, is I'm on vacation where all my friends with kids are in purgatory, let's just say. But I do like the idea, and I hadn't thought of practicing even when it's not in place. That is actually an amazingly good idea. And why I am talking to you today is because, yeah, I probably would not have thought of that. So we had talked just briefly earlier, and I wanted to touch base on this as well, is because you were talking about yoga being a mindset, and how you can do it anywhere. You don't actually have to be sitting in your living room in warrior pose, which I admit I don't know what that looks like, but I know it exists. Oh, look at you! Okay, yeah, warrior pose, right? You don't have to be in warrior pose to be in yoga. Can you tell me a little bit about that, especially how useful it was about being doing your dishes at the
So
kitchen?
yoga really is a philosophy. That's why
Philosophy.
it's not a religion. It's compatible with all belief systems. People in the West think yoga is tying yourself in a knot, and standing on your head, which it
Yeah.
is. So in the philosophy of yoga, the asana or the physical practice is only one of 8 pieces. So another piece is just like mindfulness and meditation. And once you really, maybe not even master yoga, but practice yoga regularly, you begin to see that there's tools within the practice that you can use all the time. So that what I mentioned earlier was doing dishes can become yoga. And I'll try to be brief with my example. I used to hate doing the dishes. Like I did not mind cooking, but the cleaning up was the worst. And so I would go like, oh, I had to do dishes. And then I wouldn't do them. I'd wake up in the morning and the first part of my day would be a very messy kitchen. So I started saying, no, like, let me love the practice. Doesn't mean I'm ever going to truly, truly enjoy doing dishes, but
Right.
let me go and let me take a deep breath. I'm doing cleanliness. Cleanliness is like a holy order, if you will. So let me go and do mindfulness. So I put my gloves on. I use a lot of soap. I look at the patterns of the bubbles. I feel the warm water under my hands. I just do one dish at a time. I don't look at
Oh,
a whole kitchen is a mess and the pot is stuck. And I just one piece at a time. Maybe I put on music. Maybe I sing when I'm doing it. And before it's over, or by the time it's over, I feel wonderful. I feel blissed out. And I have the pride that the kitchen is clean. But it does take energy to put myself into that mindset and approach doing dishes with love
mm-hmm.
rather than it's like kind of like the idea of I get to rather than I have to.
Yeah. Which is genius because I too hate doing the dishes. As a matter of fact, the reason we're sitting this direction in my dining room is because you would see my dishes. So I get it, and I will be doing that very thing today. I love that idea. Again, along these lines, I love how we're just moving from one thought process to another. I like how it all flows. Um, for me personally, in dealing with negative people, I'm good at a lot of things. I'm not always good with dealing with negative people. I have a tendency to just shut down. Like I shut down. I'm like, because I don't want to say anything I'm going to regret, but I just don't want to deal. We're dealing with a lot of negativity right now. What can you tell us about any practice? Is it the meditation practice? What can we do in order to deal with negativity that's coming at us from people who are literally probably 2 feet away from us, right? Because we're locked in our house together.
Yeah, that also is another one we can do a month-long workshop on that one. So coming back to the breath. So there's this idea in yoga that we are the witnessing consciousness. So here I am, Rebe, I'm a woman, I'm, whatever my age is, this is the container, this is my self-image, this is my ego. But in reality, I'm the essence of all that is, I'm the essence of God. And you can substitute for any word that fits, what you believe.
Right.
That my true nature is love and peace and harmony. But then outside of me are all these logistics, people, personality, tasks, stuff to do. And I can't control or change that. So when somebody says something to me that really lights me up and really gets me mad, instead of responding, and this also comes back to that practice and that body and muscle memory, instead of responding, I look at why did that light me up? And while I'm long, deep breathing, what can I do? Like, what did that light me up because it's true? And is that something I want to change? Why are they being that way? You know, how
Mm-hmm.
can I have love and compassion? Oh, that person's really stressed out and they're lashing out at me because they have no control. They don't know what to do with their stress. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's way, way, way easier said than done. But if we can have compassion for ourselves and have compassion for the other person and also have appropriate boundaries. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
if someone is being physically abusive,
Oh,
you don't meditate through that. You get
yeah.
yourself out of the situation. You know, if
Yeah.
somebody is abusing you physically or mentally, it's okay to say, that doesn't work for me. You know, I want to have this conversation with you. Let's calm down and let's even set an appointment. Let's meet back here in 60 minutes after we've had a chance to cool our head and we'll try to address the problem. So
Mm.
again, it comes back to having this continued mindful practice and watching the breath. If someone says something crazy to you and you notice your breath starts going really fast, start slowing the breath down, because again, it's our nervous system. So that's our sympathetic nervous system freaking out. The heart rate is increasing. The body wants to fight or flight. But if we can actually control our nervous system with our breath. So when we do long, deep breathing, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which slows everything down. And
Ah.
know that the idea of quick to respond, or just basically maybe lashing out or being short with people,
Mm-hmm.
we can help slow that down by taking care of our mind and body. And again, that keeps coming back to the practice. It's so easy. And I hope that the people that are watching and listening to this will actually begin, breath by breath, minute by minute, to notice what's happening in them and even in their body. Something
Mm-hmm.
might be happening. I notice sometimes, like, I'll start like kind of walking out of the room. Like my body literally is turning away. And it's like, oh, I want to run right now. So maybe I turn and take a deep breath and open my heart, and
Mm-hmm.
try to allow myself to receive whatever's happening in that moment.
Interesting. Actually, great advice, as a matter of fact, which I will be taking to heart. Um, Two things that I've noticed. One is your shirt says children's yoga training. So you do teach child yoga, correct?
I do, yes. I teach yoga to children. I also train adults to teach yoga to children, as well as to teach yoga to other adults.
Yeah. So yoga in children, obviously, you think is a good idea. Do you? Let's talk about that, if you don't mind. I'm just curious.
Yes.
Um, it's nothing outrageous, right? It's just learning to breathe, learning to deal with your emotions.
Yes.
What else? I mean, is it? I'm like, it's going to be a stupid question. Forgive me. Is it stretching? Is it? I mean, tell me about if you don't mind.
I would say more than anything, it's playing.
Okay, it's
So,
plain.
we might be playing, we might be doing balloon breaths. So that's how we're going to learn long, deep breathing with children. They're not going to sit down. They're not going to not wiggle. Oh, by the way, my child's at home and I'm a homeschool mom. So
Right.
I was already prepared to have a child at home, but I'm aware of, some of the challenges. My son's 16 now, so it's a different dynamic than having a young kid. But I had a young kid that was super wiggly, and we were at home trying to learn math or grammar or whatever,
Yeah.
or learn about life. But, with children, the idea is that we want to be able to see them. They want to be seen. So many of
Hmm.
us reflect back on our own childhood, and, maybe we had that teacher that we had that really amazing experience. But for that one person, we can name 10 people that ignored us, that were busy. And for those of us here that are parents, like, try to pay attention to your kid. Even if you're doing your work Zoom call and they're like, but mommy, look at this, stop and look at the book, because that's going to be the memory that stays with them.
Right.
So when I'm teaching adults to teach to children, the main thing is recognize that little child is a big spirit. They're just in a little body. And then when I'm playing with kids or teaching yoga, I'm making eye contact. I'm getting down on their level. I'm listening to their stories, completely interrupt the class because they feel like it's really important. We're doing fun things. We're doing games. We're teaching them their breath. And I also teach with Dignity Health, I teach a mommy toddler class. So imagine trying to teach yoga to adults with a bunch of 1.5 to 3-year-olds running around. It is pure chaos. But when we do the exercises and we do like animals and things that catch their attention, but when we do this breath, you see the kids stop and then they go, you see their bodies get big and then they exhale and then they run around and chaos continues. So it's about finding that peace. And that's what's happening for all of us right now. Finding that peace, finding that groundedness, even when there's chaos all on the outside.
So it's what's interesting about it is twofold for me is that it can apply to kids too. I mean, like
Yes.
kids are stressed out right now. They
Yes.
have no idea what's going on. Mom and dad, or mom is home, or dad is home when he's never been home. They're not going to school. I mean, we're watching the news going, oh my God. So I can imagine it was hard for me to wrap my head around it. And I like to pretend I'm a genius. I'm not. I tell people I'm a genius and a liar, just so you know. So it was hard for me to wrap my head around it. I imagine it's hard for kids. So along these lines, it also sounds like if you're looking for things to do with your kids at home now, that children's yoga might be a win-win for both of you, right? Like a win for the
Yes.
kid and the parent.
Yes, and I do have some online yoga classes. I was teaching them in person at Dignity Health, and now because the global pandemic, I actually have these classes available online. And thankfully, Dignity Health is offering these for free to
Yeah.
people. They don't have to pay.
That is amazing. So now are they, I'll post a link to the Dignity Health classes for our listeners, so that they can get to it easily. But one of my questions is it only in real, like, are they only offered during that scheduled class time, or are they up and you can like do it at any time during the day?
They are live classes and they're available during that scheduled time.
Okay, good, good. That's good to know. Perfect. And are you teaching a children's yoga class in those classes as
Yeah,
well as the toddler one? Okay.
exactly. I have a children's class. I have like a mommy and me or a baby and me class,
Yeah.
which, can span multiple ages. I have chair yoga, adult yoga, meditation, trauma recovery yoga, even prenatal yoga. So really for me is like spanning
Wow.
the entire stage of life, from
Wow.
I'm a baby to I'm an old woman,
Yeah.
everywhere in between because we have progressed. I've actually been teaching yoga for 16 years. So I went from starting yoga when I was pregnant, actually long before I was pregnant, but I started teaching right after I had my child, and I taught mommy baby yoga with my real 16-year-old now. And so I found that my needs as someone in my early 20s versus someone who's now in my mid 40s has really
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
So what I teach also has changed to be able to suit where people are at.
Okay. I'm going to ask two more questions that are on the top of my head right now. Number one is, can you do yoga for weight loss?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But I will say if people think they're going to do yoga and immediately lose a bunch of weight,
Yeah.
not necessarily, but what yoga will do is it will begin to help you change any bad patterns that are existing in you.
I like
Also,
it.
you'll now begin to see, like obviously I'm a thin white woman, but you'll begin to see diverse population of yoga teachers now, including heavy set women that are
Mhm.
teaching yoga because it's
Mhm.
not just for the skinny white woman. You don't have to be able to put your foot behind your head, which I cannot do, by the way. The idea is that it's the union of your body, your
Yeah.
mind, your spirit, and we are different. So it's going to look and feel different. We're going to have a different experience from it.
Yeah. I had to ask that question because you and I did have the conversation about you didn't talk about my double chin, but I did. So, mental note, I keep telling my friends I'm going to start yoga because there's so many things available online, and then I sit on my couch and eat chocolate Easter bunnies, but that's another story entirely. The last question I wanted to ask you, and this might take a few minutes because I've had very, very mixed emotions about meditation. And it's not because I don't like it, it's because it used to be frou-frou-y, right? Like it was unattainable to the normal person. But meditation, one, it can mean not different things, but it appear different to different, like you meditate while you're doing the dishes
Yes,
in
it can
some
look
ways.
different ways, and there's different teachers. So I may not be the right teacher for every student, but there is a teacher for every student.
Mm-hmm.
And there's tons of different meditations. In fact, I do have a meditation class, and I'm doing different stuff in every class because what works for one person might not work for somebody else. And
Okay.
again, thanks for bringing up the dishes. Yeah. So I approach that with meditation, and I can, at the end of the day, check like, oh, I did meditation today. But I also sometimes sit, I have like a little altar behind me. I sit at my altar in the morning and I pray or do meditation or long, deep breathing just to settle me in and set my day. And it doesn't mean I'm not going to freak out and lose my mind later, because that totally happens. But
Yeah.
again, creating the practice and coming back to it.
So actually, you and see, look, one more question. I lied. Um, I remember us talking again when we first got on the phone or on the Zoom call, and we talked about your yoga and your chemotherapy.
Yes.
I'm wondering if you might touch on that a little, because really, the people that I dealing with, the people that are in my family in terms of Susan G. Komen are still dealing with their chemotherapies, and that's not going to go away because we're in a pandemic. So there's a lot of extra emotional baggage I can imagine that's going on. And I know you handled it in a certain way. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, yeah, we got to repeat that. So can you repeat that?
I talked about going into the chemotherapy just like I talked about the dishes. It's the same
Mm-hmm.
concept. I don't want to do it. I'm scared. I remember that very first day. And it was like, I didn't want to. Like, I remember I talked about kind of turning away. My body literally just wanted to run, but I knew I needed it. My
Mm-hmm.
son was 11 at the time. And had he maybe not been so young, maybe I would have done things differently. I can't answer that question. But I
Right.
knew because he was young that the longevity of my life was not just for me, it was for my whole family.
Right.
And so I went into that doing the deep breathing, making jokes, letting them hook the IV. Putting the IV in was the hardest part. After that, you just sit there and, watch Netflix really is what I did.
Yay.
But making that first step. And then I took this really like silly picture of me making this dumb face, holding my hands like in a thumbs up. And, I still have that photo to remind me that I was brave enough to start.
Mm-hmm.
And just, regardless, and of course I felt sick after that and, so on. But
Yeah.
I started. And here's another idea, and we may go over, but I think this is pretty important. This is going to blow your mind and the people that are listening. I was sitting in meditation, working on my cancer, and this was during the process, I realized that my cancer was a living thing, and my cancer wanted to live. I'm a living thing. I
Yeah.
want to live.
Yeah.
So my cancer and I had that in common. And just as I was talking about earlier, all of a sudden my heart was open and I had compassion for the cancer. I wasn't fighting the cancer. I began to love my cancer. I told her she couldn't live in my body. That's
Right.
where my boundary was. But no longer was I mad at her, the
Mm-hmm.
cancer. Instead, I loved her, appreciated and respected her wanting to live, her trying to survive, and just let her know, you have to do that somewhere else outside of me.
Right.
All of a sudden, all the anger, all the things that decrease the immune system began to release and soften. And it was still scary. It was still terrifying. It was still unknown. But it just changed my journey. And I even was doing meditation during this COVID-19, this global pandemic, and thought, wow, like how amazing is it that this little virus started somewhere far, far away and
Mm-hmm.
managed to get over the entire world.
Right.
Like we have jets and all this technology and we can't even do it that way. So
Right.
again, none of us want to have it. It's not allowed to live in our bodies, but just experiencing the amazingness of that itself. And I
Right.
realize some people might think, oh, she's crazy, this is woo-woo, and it kind of is. But it's a bigger perspective, and it approaches everything from love and compassion rather than hate, anger, or fear, and that benefits us more than anybody else.
I agree with. So I'm the least woo-woo person you will meet, just so you know. But that makes perfect sense to me. I totally understand that thought process, because you can apply. I mean, if you can do it to that, something that's trying to take over your body, right? And
Right.
end your time here, then you can do it to some guy that cuts you off on the freeway. And really, those are the stresses we could do without in our life. They're so superfluous, right? No need for them whatsoever. And so,
I didn't wish it away.
yeah,
I still did the chemotherapy. I still did the Herceptin. I still did.
yes.
I still completely cut sugar out because we know that cancer cells eat off of sugar first, and maintained a good diet. And my husband and I, during therapy, would go to comedy shows and just laugh, 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 try to
Yeah.
be filled with joy. You know, I would make jokes. You know, I had bilateral mastectomy. I did not do reconstruction. I make jokes about not having boobs. I don't have to wear a bra, you know, and it took a while before I could make jokes about that out loud. But
Yeah.
I mean, what am I going to do? You know,
Yeah.
living in regret doesn't serve me.
No. Oh my gosh. Yeah. We might need to talk to you weekly, really. It's like, yes, I totally, totally agree with you. And I know, if you don't mind, I'm going to sell you out right now. You said you might be a little nervous, but honestly, this has just been an amazing, useful conversation. And that's what I'm looking for, things that we can use on a day-to-day basis. And I feel you've given us a lot of things. In terms of meditation, actually, we'll do it offline, and I'm going to post a link, like I said, to Dignity Health's Wellness Center classes. Your classes, are they listed under your name, Rebe Taylor?
I believe they do say Rebe or some version of Rebe.
Okay. All right. It'll just make it easier for us to find them, but there's probably a lot of other great classes to investigate.
There's a
So
lot of really fabulous classes. If yoga's not your thing, there's like Tai Chi and like enhanced fitness. There's Zumba. There's all kinds of classes. If you don't mind me plugging, or you can edit this out, my website is Rebe Yogini. It's RebeYogini.com. And on my classes, I have a list of the classes that I am teaching.
okay. Can I do a link to your website as well? Is that all right with you? Oh yeah, we'll totally do that. Are you kidding? I'm in. I might be joining in some of them.
I would love that.
I'm like, I do. This has just been, excuse me, I'm so sorry. I told you, it's real life right now, right?
Right.
Honestly, a great, great conversation. I will be doing my dishes later this evening because, you know, I've got a 9 to 5, I got to work, but I will be doing my dishes, and I'll be doing them watching the bubbles form patterns, which honestly, that to me is like, that's interesting. I'm going to investigate that. Maybe I'll make things with the bubbles.
Grown up bubble play.
Yes. I love it. So it's funny. I'm going to show you this just for the heck of it. I bought my cats a bubble machine. One of them loves it. The other one is terrified of it. So we don't bring it out very often, but yeah, bubbles.
I
So,
have one too. Not as
awesome.
fancy as yours, but I have one too because we all need to play.
Yes, which is that's probably another entire conversation we can have, which we will actually, because I think that's a great idea. We're so serious, we're so bogged down. I told a friend of mine, my people always ask me, you know, like at the beginning of the year, you do the evaluation of how your previous year was. Let me tell you, people, I've already noticed, they've already said this has been a terrible year, 2020. But my job, I feel it's my job. Every day, I find one thing that brings me joy. I don't care what it is.
Yes.
It could be, and we've already discussed the cats. Everybody knows those cats bring me joy. But there's other things. And so at the end of the year, I don't remember every bad thing that happened. I also don't remember every good thing that happened, but I do remember, I know for a fact, every day I experienced joy. So how could I go wrong?
Yeah, it's the idea of a gratitude journal where just every day, I mean, maybe 10 things bad happened, but what's the one thing? And then, because what we focus our attention on grows.
Yeah, love it. Honestly, Rebe, thank you so much. We will be having you back if you don't mind. This has just been a great conversation. And like I said, I'll post the links to your website and the Dignity Health Wellness Center site and their classes. And I'm very excited to participate in some of those.
Thank you for having me.
All right, great. We'll talk to you soon.